first guest is an award-winning journalist who swapped RTE for DC to cover Donald T for the BBC, and who we are delighted to say is back home tonight to explain what's going on Capitol Hill and maybe even what's going on in Donald Trump's mind. Would you please welcome Chief Presenter of BBC News in Washington, Caitríona Perry. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good. I like a quiet life, so I'm getting a quiet life on some planet.
You swapped the hustle and bustle of the RTE newsroom for the quiet serenity of Washington. I mean, what is it like covering that circus at the moment?
It's quite chaotic. Depending on your viewpoint, it's either a beautiful chaos or a very disorganized chaos. It's non-stop, it's relentless, but if you do what I do and you're a broadcast journalist who loves international politics and world affairs, where else would you be? Where else would
you want to be? Whenever you went over there, Biden was still in power. Did you see the second coming of Donald Trump on the way?
I actually did.
Oh, wow.
And I'm available for lottery numbers at the end of the show if anyone wants to hang around. I actually did. I'll tell you why. Because I saw Joe Biden in 2022, actually, while I was still here in RT. I was over in the US. And I just thought he wasn't as sharp as he was previously. And, you know, if we all are lucky enough to get to old age, bits start creaking and cranking, and you know, that's if you're lucky enough to make it, that's what happens. But then I was at the presidential debate in Atlanta in June, just before the election.
That moment.
And I actually wrote down in my notebook 21:37, like 9:37 p.m. as the moment that it ended for him, because it was one of those moments where he just couldn't answer anything. And then we had all the shenanigans that came afterwards with the Democrats, replace them, don't replace them, and so on. And then I travelled around all 7 of the swing states, and people were saying to me in, you know, sort of August, September 2024, what they had said to me when I was travelling around those same places for RTE in 2016, which was they were worried about the economy, they felt left behind, they, you know, could only put meat on the table for their family once a week, they couldn't put petrol in their cars before all of this current crisis, and it just felt very similar. So I was actually on drive time about 3 weeks before the election, and I was asked to call it, you know, which always is a foolish thing to do. But anyway, I put my neck on the block and said, I think Donald Trump's going to win it. And the panellist who was on with me laughed at me and was kind of, oh, you're high. There's no possible reality in which this happens. But just reading the runes, and, you know, when you get outside of a DC bubble or anywhere like that and you just get talking to people, you can usually get a good sense of where their heads are at.
How has America changed in the last year, a little over a year, since Trump has been elected?
It's changed a lot, understatement of the century. You know, it's a very... I was there when the Obama administration turned into Trump 1 for RTE, so I witnessed a transition, and there's always a transition between parties in DC in particular. The old guard leave and the new guard come in. But this time in Washington in particular, so many people were laid off, like so many civil servants were laid off. So even where I live, in our school, lots of the parents lost their jobs, so they had to sell their house, take the kids out of school, move back to wherever they were. There's a kind of nastiness around the place a bit as well, because the them and us thing is quite heightened. Washington, D.C. is kind of the ground zero for all of this. I mean, we heard President Trump talking about draining the swamp and so on. But, you know, life is different too. Like, just this past Sunday, not to brag, but it was 29 degrees in Washington with the lovely...
you can leave any time now, Caitríona.
A lovely golden ball in the sky. And, you know, a few of us, like my family, a few other families, were having a picnic on the banks of the River Potomac, and the National Guard walked by, 4 or 5 soldiers armed in their combat fatigues in the middle of the day.
Which you wouldn't have seen previously.
Which you never would have seen, you know, and the kids are like, why are there soldiers here, Mommy? And myself and the other parents are kind of saying, well, nobody really knows why they're walking through a park on the edge of the river. You know, the president would say making things safer, but it's 12 o'clock on a Sunday in 29 degrees, you know.
Yeah. I mean, the world looks like it's currently upside down. This war in the Middle East, if you want to call it a war, if you want to call it American and Israeli attacks on Iran. What do people back in America think of this?
They don't support it. Poll after poll, no matter the source, Americans do not support this. You know, the president started off calling it war, then he was calling it a small excursion, now he calls it a military operation. But, I mean, it's a war for all intents and purposes, right? Any poll you see, 50, 60, 70% of Americans don't support it. And they almost all point to not knowing why they're involved in the first place. Because traditionally, when an American president goes to launch a strike on another country, they'll do a sit-down address to the nation.
Or there'll be an address after the first strike.
Yeah, this is what happened overnight or whatever, you know, and that hasn't happened. Now, largely that's because of how President Trump conducts his media business. You know, he puts things on his Truth Social posts. But people, you know, say to you when you're talking to them, and they tell pollsters that they just don't understand why they're involved in this, particularly with the president that promised them not to do things like this, not to get involved in forever wars, and that's what they're seeing.
As they say up in Dundrum, I needed a wee fill of oil this week. And it was a wee bit more expensive than it was before Christmas. I mean, how...
Just a smidge, I'd say.
Just a smidge, yes. Shout out to Murdoch's Oil, who are doing very well with that, Phil. How much worse is this going to get for people in Ireland?
I mean, potentially a lot worse. I will say the difference between Ireland and America right now is, you know, the government moved to cut the excise duties this week to try and make things a bit better, I suppose, you know, marginally. But that will be probably wiped out by whatever will happen in the next week or two.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that happening in the US. Petrol's gone up just in the last month, 30 cent a litre, and diesel has gone up 50 cent a litre, as in Irish euro cent. And that was the one win that President Trump had and could offer them last year. And I mean, there's no end to this in sight as we see it from our viewpoint. Obviously, we're not privy to talks or talks about talks or texts about talks or you know, whatever's going on.
Talks that aren't happening at all.
Or talks about nothing, but you know, as it stands, it will get a lot worse. You know, the Iranians can or are prepared to inflict more pain than they are already, economic pain, in terms of what they're doing in the Strait of Hormuz. That's their trump card, to coin a phrase. So this could go on for some time yet. And if President Trump decides that he's going to declare victory, well, he's not the only party to this, right? I mean, the Iranians may not accept that. Israel is involved as well. They have a very different agenda to what the Americans do at this point. So I don't have any good news to bring, but the one thing is that with this president, you really never know. I mean, by the time this show is over, goodness knows where we'll be.
Well, look, this is the thing. You know, the Taoiseach Micheál Martin obviously went there to the Oval Office for St. Patrick's Day and had that look that every world leader has, which is just smile and hope this stops very soon. There he is going... I'm a Taoiseach, get me out of here. How do you think he did?
I think he did well. I mean, when you go into the Oval Office now as a foreign leader, you want to get out with your head still attached to your body. You want to get out without having made headlines. You know, on the scale of being boring up to a full-on Zelensky mauling, I think Micheál Martin did pretty well. You are in the president's front room, essentially, and he's the boss in there, and that's very evident. So you have to be respectful of that. You have to be mindful that he's in there not just as Taoiseach Micheál Martin in 2026, he's in there as Ireland for the future as well, and he's in there as an EU leader. So, you know, I think he did a good job in terms of letting President Trump have his say, jumping in respectfully when he needed to correct him, jumping in.
Also being quiet, so the camera just went on Trump,
exactly.
So he wasn't actually included in some of the stuff he was...
And you can't see his reaction shots. You know, he jumped in to defend Sir Keir Starmer, like who would have had that on their bingo card? An Irish Taoiseach rushing to defend a British Prime Minister.
And he also, you know, Micheál Martin also defended the Irish president, who he respects a lot. I mean, he couldn't even work out that President Connolly wasn't a man.
I mean, I will say that he may not have been fully briefed that we have a president and a prime minister.
Okay.
Like, he may have sort of not...
You're giving him the benefit of the
Yeah,
dice.
I'm giving him the benefit, and it was noisy in there and so on, but, you know, he's kind of like, I'm dealing with this guy, I'm dealing with the head of a country.
Okay.
What do you mean there's somebody else, you know? So I think... But who knows?
You survived your own encounter with President Trump in 2017. We have a little clip of you
dear.
in the Oval Office.
Well, we have a lot of your Irish press watching us. They're just now leaving the room. And where are you from? Go ahead. Come here. Come here. Where are you from? We have all of this beautiful Irish press. Where are you from?
I'm from RTE News. The
Taoiseach will know me. Caitríona Perry. Caitríona Perry. She has a nice smile on her face, so I bet she treats you well.
There you go. I'm a reporter. Get me out of here.
I haven't seen that clip in an age, actually, but it follows me around.
But what's it like being in his company in terms of what is the vibe?
It depends on any given day. It depends what's going on in his universe, what his mood is like, the time of day it is, who's been in immediately before the media has been in there, who he's been talking to on the phone. You know, he does things just so differently than any other president does. He's more powerful than any other American president in recent times in terms of how he's managed to navigate certain things. And you just never know what he's going to say or do. But he is more accessible than any president that I've been in Washington for in terms of speaking to the media, taking questions, taking phone calls, answering texts. All of that kind of stuff. So, you know, from a journalist's perspective, you're like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
You actually get to talk to an American president.
Well, look, that's the thing. I mean,
for better or worse.
For better or worse. Washington, of course, is the epicenter of politics at the moment. I know you love your job and, you know, your face lights up when you're talking about it. Do you miss home at any point?
I do. Like, you know, you've lived away as well. Like, you miss your friends and family. You miss going to funerals. I mean, the Irish people are very good at going to funerals, and I don't get to go to funerals. That sounds like a weird thing, but you know, you go to someone in work's parent or whatever. Or unfortunately, a lot of RTE colleagues have died from the newsroom since I've been gone. I haven't been able to go to their funeral, so that's you know, I am legal, by the way, just in case the immigration officials. I'm not missing the funerals because I can't travel home. I just have a job and a family, and you can't be coming home every other week. But you miss good Irish beef. Good vegetables, chipper chips, you know. I'm going back now tomorrow with my suitcase full of like proper cheese and onion crisps and proper chocolate. I had to have a meeting actually with the Irish representative of the Easter Bunny just to make sure that he knows there are 2 children in America waiting on Irish Easter eggs, not the terrible American chocolate Easter eggs.
Okay, good. Okay. We'll put that out there.
Yeah. It's an important business.
Making chocolate great again. That's
not American chocolate.
I know,
though.
it's so
terrible
bad.
stuff.
It's so bad. Look, thank you so much. I know that this is a flying visit, but thanks for coming to see us. Thanks for filling us in. We wish you all the best, and thanks for flying the flag for Ireland in Washington. One more time, Caitríona Perry. Thank you so much.